My only thing with Hugo, and you can't obviously touch his record, his history as a player, the leader that he is. If you're going to complain after you win. Don't complain after you lose, because the surface had nothing to do with LAFC not putting that game to bed.
No one should ever feel sorry for Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak came in to this club by forcing the move from Newcastle and telling everyone he was Taylor Swift. He came in and said, no, I'm Taylor Swift. I'm the headline act. I'm the person to put bums on seats. I'm the £100 million player. I'm going to score 30 goals in the Premier League. I'm the big swinging sorry, Tim. And I'm going to be the person that leads Liverpool moving forward. And he looks like a fish out of water. Well, hi, everybody. It's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things from the world of football that we thought were interesting. I'm Tom Rennie, alongside me is MLS legend and top broadcaster in San Diego in a hotel room right now, getting ready for the fourth and final game from your MLS weekend. It's only Brian Diddy Clean the Sheets, Dunny Dunseth. Hello, mate.
Hey, man, my sheets look pretty clean. You know, I'm one of those guys that wakes up and you got to put the bed somewhat back in order.
You've made a hotel bed. You've made it.
Oh, absolutely. And when I'm leaving, I take all of the towels and I put them in a pile and I kind of wrap them up into a little bundle, just out of respect. Pick the trash up out of I travel so much. I have this weird OCD thing where I've just got to make sure that things are processed the way obviously things are processed. For example, right now, your Christmas tree is really bugging the living out of me. Sorry, Tim.
Yes.
Because it's not even Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And what I just realized is the Rennies are psychopaths. And you have a bowed Christmas tree up early on, checks notes, November 24th. What is wrong with you? For he who hates everything in the world, including Halloween, why?
Halloween does suck, though. Halloween is pointless. It's a complete waste of time.
Christmas is pointless. Hey, I love you. Here's a gift.
As opposed to what? Hey, I don't like you. Let me slash your throat.
Ding dong.
How is that better?
Here's some candy, little kid.
There is candy, or sweets, as they're known in the real world, in Christmas as well. So I'll tell you what happened, right?
I'm right. You
are right on this one. You are right on this one. So I was up late on Saturday. I was doing the commentary of Newcastle Man City, which was great. So I didn't get home till super, super late. And I walked in, and this is sort of the front room in our house, and the rest of the house is sort of obviously further back. I opened the door, and she'd left the lights on. And I went upstairs to wake my wife up about 1 a.m, and I was like, why is the Christmas tree up? It's like, why have you done this? And she was like, Tom, you left the house on Friday morning. I haven't seen you. It's now 1 a.m. on Sunday, and I had the 2 kids the entire time. They wanted to put the tree up. What the did you want me to do with them for the rest of this time? Sorry, Tim. And I thought, yeah, okay. Fair enough. If a 5-year-old wants it up, it goes up. Those are the rules. And you know what it's like when you've got the kids for this long and it's been hours on end. There's 3 hours till bedtime. If they say slather yourself in butter and slide along the floor to get us to bedtime, I'm doing it.
That's the Man City locker room after winning a Premier League title?
Yes, yeah. I look like the weird washing man who was in his wife runs being
You
thrown
oddly
around.
look very similar to the Kit Man.
I am him.
You've got a very likable face with butter.
Yes.
Uncle
Mank, we call him. Uncle Mank in the house. So, it's a Week in the Tackle podcast. If you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts, where the majority of our listeners are, thank you very much indeed. Also subscribe over on Spotify. And if you'd like to see the Christmas tree behind me, or you'd like to see Dunny's stanky San Diego hotel room, you can subscribe on YouTube right now. If you do that, not only do you get Week in the Tackle for free, we're not asking you to pay for this, it's for free in your YouTube feed. You can watch it on your telly, on your phone or whatever, but you also get better quality recommendations in your algorithm as well. So you'll no longer get the terrible videos you're currently getting about what's going on with Brigitte Macron. You will get Dunny and Rennie. I'm just getting in the algorithm. You got to say it, and then you get in the algorithm. That's how it works.
I don't know. I don't know if that algorithm's so safe nowadays.
Hey, it's not safe, but there's numbers. We just want the numbers. We don't need the quality. We just need the quantity. Okay, subscribe on YouTube. Anyway, right. Let's get to this weekend. There's loads of great stories. I want to start with MLS. You're working on San Diego later, so we won't do a preview it because people will have heard this by the time the games happen. But I want to talk about the LAFC Vancouver Whitecaps game because that was awesome. Just so much fun. You've got Heung-min Son scoring this 95th minute free kick after Vancouver go down to 10. You've got an extra time where at 10, then 9-man Whitecaps are holding on for dear life. It's an incredible extra time where they just about hold on. We get to pens. Son has scored twice in the game. He misses his penalty, and then the Whitecaps go through on what's generally accepted to be the worst artificial pitch in the world. So, an incredible game, according to Hugo Lloris and Adrian Heath as well today, who told me this. What a game. And LAFC are out, which I didn't see coming. I thought they'd win it all.
Yeah, let's start with Hugo Lloris's comments. I was actually having this conversation last night with Max Bredos and Marcelo Balboa and Kenny Neal and Sarah, everyone at the table. And um, this is my take. When you're talking about surfaces, when you're talking about the quality, when you're talking about grass, or you're talking about pitch being watered, or you're talking about altitude, or you're talking about heat and humidity, all of these factors are advantages. And LAFC, because of their booking schedule with a lot of their concerts, has had some really monumental moments happen where it's a brand new surface that's been laid down, and all of a sudden you're talking about grass, you're talking about creme de la creme, the quality, the cost, all of this stuff. And if I was to point out to Ben Olsen that LAFC was complaining about a surface with the Houston Dynamo, he would gently remind us that one of his star signings, a U22 player that was just on the precipice of taking them to the next level, scoring a goal, ended up tearing his ACL just a few minutes afterwards. And when we talk about the heat and humidity and how dire that can be, when we talk about the altitude in Salt Lake City and Denver, Colorado, that those are things that you have to prepare for. My only thing with Hugo, and you can't obviously touch his record, his history as a player, the leader that he is. If you're going to complain after you win, don't complain after you lose, because the surface had nothing to do with LAFC not putting that game to bed.
Is it bad though? Is it a particularly bad artificial surface? Because there are good ones and there are bad ones. Like that is true for
If I had to
artificial pitches.
categorize the best surface, the best artificial surface in MLS, I would say it's the Portland Timbers. That would be the surface that I would say for me when I stepped out on the field and I stood on it and I watched the way the players are moving the ball around. That would be ideal. Here's the other thing: you have to acknowledge Vancouver Whitecaps. BC Place is not theirs. That's a lease situation. Vancouver Whitecaps aren't necessarily choosing to play on that type of surface. And Adrian's right, and at the end of the day, Hugo's right. It's not the best surface available. And after 3, 4, 5 years, you would want it. If you were the primary tenant, you would want it occupied, you would want it turned over, and you would want the best of the best with the technology that's coming out. But again, the reality is last season, Vanni Sartini at the time, the Vancouver Whitecaps head coach, they had priority to host the Portland Timbers in the wild card game. BC Place was booked for, I believe it was like a motorcycle event. So they had to play their game in Portland and gave Portland home field advantage. So all of these things can be true. The only thing that I would like is if you're going to point that out, maybe after you win the Pens, after you knock Vancouver out, then you can come out and say, because listen, if he's going to say this is a worse surface than some of the third and fourth division teams in France, like,
yes, that's what he said. Yeah.
You're blustering just a little bit right now. But it's not that David Martinez didn't lay the ball off to his left-hand side on 3 different occasions. Andy Morin didn't, make the correct decision with the weight of the pass. All of these things are factors, mitigating factors that are more important than the conversation about the surface. But again, I can understand where he's coming from. I would just rather that not be something that can be used as a bullet point in the conversation of why potentially they lost the game.
Where do LAFC go from here, do you think? They've been so good for the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's the end of the tenure of Steve Cherundolo. In full disclosure, I played with Steve Cherundolo. I respect him wildly as a human being. And I'm really excited to see, because I think when, the Red Christmas comes over in the Bundesliga, Steve Cherundolo's name is going to be heavily linked with a couple of Bundesliga teams. I think he's done enough in his tenure. And maybe, just maybe, outperformed Bob Bradley. And when we're talking about first manager to second manager, and the culture created the style of play, and ultimately the consistency of performances that have allowed them, maybe at times to not win a title, but to get to the big dance and to be in the finals of multiple competitions, as well as beating Club America at home to qualify for the FIFA Club World Cup. Because I think from a branding standpoint, and not for nothing, think about the summer that they had, where they're divesting of Under, they're divesting of Dilrosun, they're divesting of Olivier Giroud in the attacking phase of play, Kike Oliveira departing. Like, for them as a collective unit to have guys like Denny Bawanga, then Sung Hyung Min, and again, it's $20 to $26 million spent, so you're talking about a difference maker, but that's still pennies on the dollar. And to have these Carlos Vela's, Chiellini's, Gareth Bales buy into Steve's system and respect him so much as a coach that then there's no conversation about confidence. There's no conversation about quality. There's no conversation about, like what we're seeing right now with the arrival of Xabi Alonso and the decision, even the story this morning in the Athletic about Vinicius Jr. not wanting to renew. So there's a respect factor. So I'm really, really intrigued to see what direction. Tata Martino has been sounded out, obviously. I think Mark Dos Santos, the assistant coach for the LA Galaxy, there's been links and reports about him. I'm very, very interested to see what their next direction is from a coaching perspective, because they went the path less traveled with Steve Cherundolo when he had only had a second division Las Vegas Lights, where I think he was like 2 wins and 26 losses. So to see what he's done is huge. In terms of the roster and the squad, the depth is there, the quality is there. And I think if they didn't make a single change to this roster right now, they would start off in a much stronger spot than the way that they've kind of watched their season over the course of the calendar year spread itself out. Because this is a team that has proof and concept from a scouting network. It has a very clear idea of who they are and what they want to build. A strong foundation of LAFC too, that which continues to afford them opportunities when they're stretched real thin because of international duty and injury, to continue to build into the first team. Um, and again, they've got the Hollywood lights. They are front and center and have very easily taken over the conversation in Los Angeles of who is the bigger club, who is the better club.
Yeah.
Right now, that check mark is still in the hands of LAFC over LA Galaxy.
And speaking of glamour, let's just get to Miami as well. Thumping victory against Cincinnati by 4 goals to 0. And I love Lionel Messi, right? We all love Lionel Messi, but we don't need to have to make up made up stats about him. But I'll just read this to you because you'll probably enjoy this, but this annoyed me. Messi in his career has reached another milestone. Oh yes, the milestone he wanted. He's now achieved a mind-blowing, says The Sun, 1,300 goal involvements during his stunning career. 896 goals and 404 assists for Lionel Messi during his career. And of course, there's a goal and 3 assists in this game. It's 12 goal contributions in the playoffs this season. I do find 1,300 goal involvements a bit like we've already got. He's won the World Cup. We haven't got to make other things up, but it's fine. But again, a great performance from him. And it looked a little bit like they're an evolving team under Mascherano, in that they are now responding to the things that we've always said, which is there ain't going to be legs in certain games, and there are some players that can't play and some that can. And it looks almost a bit like next year's Inter Miami, which we've been talking about, is sort of arriving in the playoffs this year, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think the bullet point, and by the way, you think about the pass before the pass, and if you add those goal involvements, he's probably
2,000 Gs,
4,500,
double XGs, quadruple XGs.
Yeah, attacking phase of play, XG. Javier Mascherano had a big decision to make, and that was Luis Suarez being available again. When he kicked out in that second leg against Andy Najar down in Nashville, and was subsequently fined and suspended for that final game in Miami in Game 3. Salvetti, the young Argentine, the 19-year-old Argentine, who's from Rosario, who played for Newell's, the same club, the same system, the same thing that Lionel Messi had his pathway before he went to Barcelona. Salvetti, in the attacking phase of play, was a very quiet addition at the time, and only $4 million the cost, which turns out to be not only the present and the future, and really interesting to see because they did this with Diego Gomez, the Paraguayan midfielder, a couple of years ago that he ended up going to Brighton. Their short-term spend to high-end potential sale is significant. Whether you're talking about Solvetti, you're talking about Tadeo Allende, those type of players, Segovia coming in, obviously Kremaski. Uh, they've they've missed with a couple of players, but more often than not, they've really hit on some extremely talented players. Redondo was probably the weirdest one that didn't really hit, and they moved him on. But the decision to leave Luis Suarez on the bench after that third game against Nashville, where we saw this collective press where Messi's playing in, we call it the false nine, I guess, but it's not really a nine. He's still in the 10. But because Allende on the right and Salvetti on the left, all of a sudden there's a check, there's a second run, there's a double check, there's a second run, and then there's a third run because Alba's always present on that right or on that left hand side. The late runs popping through the midfield. For Javier Mascherano to know that Busquets potentially playing his last game, Jordi Alba potentially playing his last game, and maybe a feel around Luis Suarez playing his last game potentially for Inter Miami was all a very real kind of physical, emotional tie because he's played with all these guys.
Yeah.
So they made a big decision. And obviously we don't know what that conversation looked like privately, but at the end of the day, the unflattering pictures and images of Luis Suarez sitting on the bench while watching Silvetti, dice up and ball and get on the end of things and pick out Lionel Messi with a perfectly weighted ball, pop through the midfield. It's frightening to see their run of form, and they're not going to change it. And as long as they can stay healthy, I know there was a couple of niggles and knocks, and Weigand had to start because Ian Frey was banged up. So the fact that they now have home field advantage in a timeline that we thought that they had lost home field advantage because they beat Cincinnati and because NYCFC beats Philadelphia, now they get to be at home against NYCFC. NYCFC was fantastic last night. They went up to Philadelphia. They had lost Martinez when he went to Costa Rica, playing against Haiti in a World Cup qualifier, blew his knee out. Pereira had a lower leg fracture, a suspension to one of their key midfielders, O'Neal, and they did the business. And U.S. international Matt Freese came up with two fantastic saves, the type of saves that we want to see him make with the U.S. men's national team as well. So huge opportunity in the Eastern Conference, and the thought process is that Inter Miami is going to brush them aside, or at least that's the early easy predictions, as NYCFC are going to be the outliers now in the Eastern Conference.
Well, we'll find out together next weekend, and we'll review it all for you on next week's Week in the Tackle. I want to get to some of these Premier League stories because there's some wild stuff happened this weekend, including West Ham being 2-0 up and deciding to close the game down for 45 whole minutes and being unable to do so, which was weird. We probably won't talk about that, but that was super dumb.
Good reference.
But let me ask you about this Liverpool-Nottingham Forest game. What a win for Forest, by the way. There's a great quote from Sean Dyche I'll read you in a second. But in terms of Liverpool, back-to-back games lost by 3 goals or more for the first time since 1965 under Bill Shankly. And they are currently en route for one of the worst title defences in Premier League history. They are the 4th side in the history of the competition to lose 6 or more in their first 12. Blackburn Rovers, 95, Chelsea, 2015, and Leicester, 2016. And the quote from Sean Dyche I want to read, which was great. Now, I'll do the voice. He says, "We changed the tactical side today. I told the players, we're not passing it, we're going long." As if there was another tactic before that. But, I thought it was really interesting in that when Murillo scores in this game, there is a collective head drop from all of these Liverpool players. They don't seem to know what to do from that point. And they've fallen behind a lot over the years, at Anfield especially, and come back to win it. But you're watching this team at the moment, and Mo Salah is contributing almost nothing. Cody Gakpo contributed nothing in this game. Florian Wirtz is unavailable currently. Gravenberch is not having a great season. McAllister is struggling with the defensive side of the game. Szoboszlai at right back is not working. Konate and Van Dijk look massively exposed. And Milos Kerkez looks nowhere near the player who was excelling at Bournemouth last season. And that all comes together where I mean, you just sort of need someone, right? Someone to have a special game. And it's Erling Haaland pulls Man City out the soup when they're in trouble. And you could do it for loads of teams. Look at what Mbeumo has done for Man United. His incredible form has changed the feel around the entire club, right? On and on. Freddie Potts, playing some games for West Ham, has suddenly made us think, oh yeah, that competent bloke with the side parting. That's the kind of thing we like. Essex boy with side parting in midfield. Hook it to our veins. And Salah's been that guy for obviously such a long time. That's not happening. And Isak, no one should ever feel sorry for Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak came in to this club by forcing the move from Newcastle and telling everyone he was Taylor Swift. He came in and said, no, I'm Taylor Swift. I'm the headline act. I'm the person that put bums on seats. I'm the £100 million player. I'm going to score 30 goals in the Premier League. I'm the big swinging sorry, Tim. And I'm going to be the person that leads Liverpool moving forward. And he looks like a fish out of water, unable to play in this team, doesn't quite know what his role is. No one complained to me about fitness at this point. It's November, as you can tell by my Christmas tree. So, just... There's so much happening here, and they were thoroughly beaten by Forest, who also had a goal disallowed, somewhat controversially. I'm not convinced there was a handball in what would have been the second at the time. And they were just the physicality, Dunny, of Forest. It's almost like Liverpool are playing an almost last season style when we keep on saying, this Premier League, it's Pulis era physicality, and if you ain't got it, you're going to get beat in this league, and that result did not flatter Forest at all.
Yeah, and by the way, Sean Dyche, I looked it up. Wins with Burnley, a couple of wins with Everton, and now a win with Nottingham Forest in the Merseyside. That was not just smash and grab either. I mean, they're actually they're he's simplified everything that they've needed to do. And again, it's margins, right? I was actually thinking about this morning when I went back and watched the highlights. Is it the manager or is it the players? Because I feel like as I was trying to look back and trying to find like a competent comparison, it honestly, it feels like what was happening last year with Pep Guardiola and Man City. Just where the margins were so slim, the luck was so down that all of a sudden there just becomes like these havoc moments where instinctually you've always felt like defensively Manchester City or Liverpool would sort it out, snuff it out. That somebody, the big players that we always expect to turn up in massive performances, that they were going to be those guys. And to your point about McAllister, like the amount of times, like even that cutback ball, Savona, or wasn't Savona, it was maybe one of the last ones where Andy Robertson, the big switch to Amari Hutchinson runs at him and gets inside. The slide, because all of a sudden there's a breakdown and McAllister's trying to get there first. All of a sudden his man is now left and there's nobody then sliding to protect. There's just like these escalations of moments that are coming back to haunt them. In the offensive phase of play, they had chances, not necessarily clear-cut chances, but a very sturdy, defensively sound team that likes to keep the game in front of them in Nottingham Forest. And ultimately, yeah, it's momentum and confidence right now. I mean, even Szoboszlai, like on the mark on Murillo, on the wrong side, ball drops. It's literally one step to his right, and maybe that play is a nothing burger. But instead, because he's one more step to his left, all of a sudden there's a half opportunity. And there's just a ruthlessness. And it's funny, I've had this conversation with Inter Miami, with a lot of MLS teams, in that when Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, all these guys, Rodrigo De Paul, when they're in the locker room, the first time you play them, you're like, oh my God, dude, can you, like, that's, and like they've almost won the game psychologically before you've even stepped on the field, because you just don't, you know what they're capable of doing. I wonder if that fear's gone right now. I would assume that Sean Dyche and everybody all of these managers over the last 8 games or whatever, 8 losses, 11 matches, all of these managers will show Liverpool's strengths and show what they're capable of doing. But right now, if I'm an opposing manager, I'm clipping every goal that they've conceded in the last 11 games, and I'm showing how normal they are, right? Just how normal they are. And hey, why not us? Like, let's add to this list, like the motivation factor. So they've lost something, and I'm very, very intrigued to see how the press, the English press in particular, um, starts down the path with Arne Slot,
Yeah.
because it's very easy and low hanging fruit to say Arne Slot now, because of what's happening, had taken Jurgen Klopp's team and just managed them through what was a spectacular season. But now, how do you look at a team and how do you honestly judge a team? How do you judge a club that spent 450 million? How do you judge a manager that hasn't put the pieces together in a timeline in which they are absolutely struggling, so much so that Manchester United has a game in hand, has a better points differential, has a better plus negative goal differential. And for the heat that Ruben Amorim's been taking, now you're looking to see if it's going to be equal with what's happening right now at Liverpool.
I want to follow up on that with something I heard this week from this is what I do in my spare time. A podcast I was listening to where Mick McCarthy was interviewing Roy Hodgson. Did you see any of
I
this?
heard about this.
It
I
was actually,
heard
I
about it.
saw a clip and then went to listen to the whole conversation because it was so interesting. And it was Roy Hodgson talking about when he got sacked at Liverpool. And Jamie Carragher and Steven Gerrard come into his office or whatever to kind of say goodbye. And Carragher reportedly, according to Hodgson, said words to the effect of, "You know what you did wrong here, don't you? You tried to coach us. And we've just had years and years of being coached by this meticulous coach. And what we needed now was someone not to coach us for a while and not try to change us. We needed a little bit more freedom and yada, yada, yada." And I thought that was so interesting when you then compare it to where we are now, in that Arne Slot didn't reinvent the wheel last season. He made tweaks, absolutely. There was more possession, it was slightly slower, and things like that. But in general, it was still very much built around Salah being played in by Alexander-Arnold and blah, 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 blah. But it was still very Kloppy in its way. They've now had this massive investment where he's obviously been involved in or decided he wants to build this team around Florian Wirtz. I know he was injured this weekend, but looking at the macro of the season, he obviously wanted some investment in more wing-back style players and all this sort of stuff, and maybe build around the central striker being Isak as opposed to what was before, which was built around Salah. So he wants to make changes. And I wonder how much it comes into last season. It's not to take the credit off Arne Slot. We're not doing that, I don't think. But there is a time to come in when you've had one manager into another, and there is a moment where it just being another voice lifted levels. And now, with it being Arne Slot trying to implement more of his own ideas, it just looks confused. I mean, how much do you read into that? I don't know.
Well, I listen. I don't disagree with how you're painting this picture, but I would also add that Luis Diaz was a certified 100% threat each and every game on that left-hand side, and you knew exactly what you got. Darwin Nunez, a wild card, no idea what you got. Diogo Jota, when on the field, he was an impact player instantly and understood everything that was going to be asked of him. Even if it was coming on for the final 25 minutes of a game, he knew how to change the game and give that swing of momentum into Liverpool's favor with that collective group. Everybody knew each other's strengths. Everyone knew each other's weaknesses. The one thing that I think that sometimes people get lost on is the conversation of the significant spend. Because where I think we've got to sometimes step back, and I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of managers about this, is when you make significant changes and bring in these type of players, you're not just talking about quality, you're talking about ego, you're talking about personality, and you're talking about the change of a culture inside of a locker room. And again, it looks negative right now, but I don't mean it to be negative. I mean it to like tell a story, because now all of a sudden you're losing three guys for completely different reasons that were seemingly integral parts of the fabric of what that team has been for the better part of the previous 3 to 4 seasons.
Hmm.
Now all of a sudden those guys are out the door. You've got new personalities. Everyone's getting to know each other's strengths, weaknesses. You think about anything from preparation to heading into the gym, to who's on the treatment table, to who won't take the penny for 5v2 immediately to get in the middle, to now maybe some more of these tough tackling presence. And by the way, Trent Alexander-Arnold on that right-hand side is a part of that offensive trifecta, but in a different conversation. And then you talk about contracts renewed, aging players, guys winding down contracts, guys that maybe are looking for different opportunities, guys that want to be the man now that other guys have departed. I just think there's so many variables at play. Plus, a very confident manager in Arne Slot, who outside of that one bad week in the Cup and in Champions League and the juggernaut that was PSG, we were talking about a treble, and we were
Yeah.
talking about the consistency of their performances were so elite that they were untouchable in that moment. So, yeah, I just think it's so much deeper, and I don't know if there's an answer right now. And I think that's
Mm.
that's the challenge for Arne Slot and his coaching staff is to find the right answer for this group and for these players. I can't imagine any of them are happy right now. I can't imagine the tension, the ego blast that's happening right now.
Mm.
Because every single day, man, you got to open up that phone and understand individually and collectively, you're getting absolutely slaughtered for the lack of consistency of your performances compared to last season.
Well, look, we can all keep our fingers crossed. It continues till next week, where they go to the Bowl of Disappointment to take on West Ham on Sunday. And we just need that win. We need that win so bad. Let me ask you quickly on that. Actually, I wasn't going to talk about it, but I did think it was fascinating. Like West Ham are 2-0 up right this weekend and killing it. Like they're in charge of the game. Potts and Fernandez, fantastic. Midfield's fantastic. They're 2-0 up at Bournemouth, deservedly so in the way they set out to play. And then Nuno took off Callum Wilson 6 or 7 minutes into the second half, who'd scored 2 goals. And he sort of went to ultra defensive keep him out mode from the 52nd minute. And in the end, but they defended pretty well, considering it was an onslaught in both weather and style. Like, it was a tough old game. And Areola had a blinder of a game, by the way. Funny what you can do with some confidence as opposed to Graham Potter telling you you're useless and signing a worse goalkeeper to replace you. I fucking hate Graham Potter. Sorry, Tim. But, like, what was that about? I watch a lot of football, Dunny. You played a lot of football and watched a lot of football. It's rare you see someone try and hold on to a 2-0 lead from
Yeah.
half time. And surprise, surprise, it didn't work.
Yeah, I think I missed the game live because I was traveling, so I only caught the highlights. And I just wonder if Nuno felt like the elements of weather with the 2-0 lead was one of those moments where, hey, let's adjust our tactics. We'll still go for the jugular. We'll try to find the third. Let's see. And again, when I say that in transition moments, you're inviting pressure in from Bournemouth. You hit and then you counter and you score goals, or you create goal scoring opportunities. I just wonder, and this is as a player, when you're up 2-0, I was always at my most fearful
Mm,
because I knew that if I conceded a goal, that momentum swing was so incredibly difficult to deal with. Because then you're sitting a little bit deeper, you're a little less likely to be anticipatory versus kind of dropping back and trying to keep the game in front of them. You lack a little bit less confidence of trying to play a ball through the lines. It's a little bit safer. It's a little bit more backwards. Maybe you're even adjusting your body and you're taking a ball to kind of like play backwards and alleviate even more pressure, as opposed to I'm going to chop it back across and I'm gonna zing one up the fucking line. Sorry, Tim. Sorry, Tim. Um, yeah, and maybe it's just down to the stupidity of points. Like, hey, we got 3 points in the back pocket. Let's keep the game in front of them.
mm,
So, yeah, I wonder if he'll. These are the moments where I wish managers felt more comfortable opening up and talking about their tactics and understanding exactly why, like
yeah.
really understanding exactly why. But again, I was part of a conversation this last weekend where we were I was telling a story about a manager that really dug in about his tactics and his system and his shape, and he was explaining it. And wouldn't you know, the next weekend when the result didn't happen, the reporter that he was talking to used his tactics against him,
Mm.
but he got it wrong. He had keyed in so hard on this one tactical part of the game plan and thinking that it failed when that actually wasn't the problem. And so what the manager do? Cool. Now everyone's healthy. Tuesday morning, we'll see what the starting 11 looks like, and
Yeah.
we'll give
I
it a
don't
right
talk
go.
to you no more.
Yeah, and so it was done. Dead in the water. So, yeah, whatever he saw, he didn't like, and he made those changes. But
Yeah.
three
I mean,
points.
look, it's still a good point and all that, but they were cruising to a victory that would have been 9 points from 9 going into Liverpool, and Forest are winning and West Ham get. I mean, it's interesting now that West Ham and Forest have got out of it as we sort of thought they would, and Burnley and Leeds have fallen in, which I thought they would, and frankly hope they would. I want to talk about another confrontation between media and manager, and that's this Pep Guardiola story. And I don't know how much you've seen of it. For those that haven't seen it, the full-time whistle goes, and Pep Guardiola has been a monumental. Sorry, Tim, on the sideline for this game. Like, he's punching the chair and he's lost control completely, and he's lost it right on the sideline, which happens. Fine, it's a high pressure job. Yeah. But then I don't know what this cameraman has done or like perceived to have done. I couldn't tell you exactly that. But of course, when the final whistle goes, their job is to get into the manager's sort of faces and the players' faces and get the shots, right? That is their job. Sidebar, love the fact the cameraman had an FC Dallas hat on. I thought that was super cool. So now FC Dallas, you are mortal enemies to Pep Guardiola. Those are the rules. But he took his ear off him and then started shouting something in his ear, then lets go of it and continues to have a go at him. And the camera operator, like, when he realizes what's happening, sort of holds the camera down a bit, turns around to Pep and he's like, "What are you doing, mate? Like, what are you doing?" And Guardiola has since apologised today. He said, "I feel embarrassed, ashamed when I see it. I don't like it. I apologise after 1 second to the cameraman. I am who I am." I'm not sure he did it after 1 second, but sure. But for me, like, this is so much worse than, like, Enzo Maresca running down the sideline to celebrate with his players at the full-time whistle. This is totally unacceptable. Unacceptable. Double underline in red behaviour. I talk a lot, Daddy, you do this for a living a lot more than me, but I have done it for a living. That power imbalance between you as the reporter and them as the manager or the person you're speaking to. And it's not a normal conversation. And it goes to what you were speaking about in the previous answer. You have to be almost over-respectful, which sometimes means you don't get the answers you might want. And that's, you know, why you're so good at it, the skill of disarming the person that you're sort of talking to, even when they've got the hump. And it's a real skill to be able to do it. And that's sort of not this, because the cameraman is holding his job, pointing the camera at him. And, like, I guarantee you, if I'm that camera operator and we are not, like, in this sort of field, someone does that to me, I slap them around the face. I would slap this geezer, because those cameras are expensive. I'm doing my job. Why are you pulling this off my ear, confronting me when I'm doing my job? Who the f*** are you? Like, sorry, Tim.
And that's a full harness that he's wearing. I mean, that's a full harness camera that he's walking around with.
Real heavy, real tough, difficult job this man is doing. Like, this is not just like holding a camcorder. He's doing a proper job that experienced operators have to do. And so, like, it's a long-winded way of saying, like, I think there should be a big ban for this. I think this is more of a big deal than it's being sort of talked about as today. I saw some accounts posting it as sort of banter, which f***ed me off. Sorry, Tim, last one. It annoyed, because it's not banter, this actually. This is bang out of order. And for me, an apology doesn't cut it, frankly. I want a long suspension for this, because no respect for the people who are working on the game for me. I think it's totally off.
You could tell, to your point, he had the lid had popped. You know, he'd popped his top, and he was on the sideline in the margins, and the goal that stood for where the line was drawn, and all, you know, from, you know, the bottom of the shirt to the armpit, and the conversation of you know, who's deciding it very complicated, and the chances created, and the tackles, and the opportunities, and the moments, and it was a great game. I mean, it was a great game. But you know, we talked earlier using the analogy, or using the example of what's happening with Liverpool, maybe the last year with Man City. I think that there's obvious fear of what's happening at Manchester City, to make sure that the margins are a lot tighter, that the losses are draws, the draws are wins, all of those fun things that we talk about. But man, he has got a very specific style, and you know, he's very savanty when it comes to the way that he sees the game and the way he sees his team applying all of those little tactical discipline markers that he wants to see with his group. But I agree with you, man. Like, you could tell as it was getting close to the final whistle, he was already ready to engage. And it's interesting, you know, like having words with Bruno Guimaraes, and then Joe Linton getting involved, and, you know, the banter of losing 3 points and taking 3 points, and the atmosphere was incredible. He wanted to have his say with the referee. He got his say with the referee. You know, he redlined. It was red mist, and whatever that camera operator did, or the perception of whatever that camera operator did, I thought the line was crossed.
Yeah.
So he apologizes. He absolutely should apologize. Whether it was flippant or not, the apology, it is what it is. But I guess to your point, how do we put words on a piece of paper that then these incidences become punishable offenses?
Hmm.
That's where I think it gets nervy. But yeah, he's got a history. That's just who he is.
Yeah.
And I guess it until there's a more physical confrontation to draw a more significant line, I'd be intrigued to see how the lawmakers and rule makers try to figure out a way to snuff this out because it certainly isn't happening unless you really try to come down hard on them.
I have one more story I want to talk to you about for today's show, and that came from that game, Newcastle Man City, but it was before the game. And I don't know if this would have come across or not, but I want to talk to you about it and see what you think. So recently, Wolverhampton Wanderers changed the song they walk out to. So I don't know if
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
noticed this, but they changed it to "Field of Gold" by is it Sting, not the Police, I think it's Sting, and it's obviously super depressing. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. And they come out and it's like, oh, must call my dad. Sad times. That's so it's so depressing. And it used to be Hi Ho Silver Lining, but that song is a Villa song and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Newcastle have been coming out for years to the song Local Hero. It's got that saxophone solo, and they walk out to this saxophone solo. They've been doing it for like 35 years. Well, apparently, this comes from the guys over at War Flags who do the big tifos for Newcastle. Apparently, the players had requested that Local Hero was no longer the song they
Wow.
walked out to, which went up to kickoff. They wanted it replaced by Blade and Races, which is, to see the Blade and Races, which is the song the Newcastle fans sing. And the thought process is that they'd be singing a song at the time they kick off, a bit like You Never Walk Alone
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Blowing
yeah.
Bubbles or the Arsenal nonsense YouTube song, as opposed to like, you can't really sing along to a saxophone thing. There was a poll done online, I think by someone at The Athletic of this, where it received almost universal damnation from Newcastle fans who do not want this and did not like it. And I just sort of wondered what your thoughts were in terms of, you've been a fan, been a broadcaster, been a player, about how important that fanfare is before the game. I was quite intrigued on this story that it came from, it would seem, the players. They wanted something different as opposed to the Mark Knopfler saxophone bit
Yeah.
comes to an end. There's a cheer and they kick off. They would rather there was a bit more hymnal vibe to the
Yeah.
kickoff.
As I'm thinking about it from like a player or from like a captain or a leadership committee type of standpoint, like that's what you're worried about? Like seems like there's a bunch of other things you got to check the boxes of. Um, yeah, listen, I wasn't really able to have that type of connectivity. I think that's why there's such an allure and such a draw to the Premier League here in the States, is because there's such a history and there's such a culture and there's such an identity. Um, so Salt Lake, Brandon Steineckert, who's the drummer for Rancid, came up with a
Mm.
song, and it was called the Believe. It was Believe. It was if you believe it, you stand up on your feet. We'll shout it out, yeah. Like so, it became like a very like so the
Very
Believe
German
song.
sounding.
Yeah, well, it was great. I couldn't do it. Like I'm not a musician like Brandon is. But it became like like something that he created that he brought it to the club.
Yeah.
It became part of the fabric, and it was scarves and it was shirts, and the song would sing right before kickoff, and everyone would be standing up, and then when the goal would be scored, it would be the same song, and all of a sudden it became something that. And he had relationships with like Nick Raimondo and Kyle Beckerman and all of these guys. Me as a broadcaster, so it was very inclusive, right? And the kids loved it, and the parents would sing it, and it was hooky, it was catchy. So that was probably the closest that I'd seen something like that really resonate. But I mean, outside of like pre-game warm-up music, where there's always usually somebody that would then go to the club and say like, "Hey, can you play this music? It's the clean version. This is like the music that we like to listen to during warm-ups and get ourselves ready." But these are icon like this is connectivity with the fans, and
Yeah.
so it's as long as the fans are okay with it, I guess. But
They
uh,
are not. They are not okay with it.
if you need pump up music to get you pumped up before kickoff of a Premier League match, I would wonder psychologically where that group of players is really at.
Yeah. And also, you can't beat the saxophone for an instrument to rev you up before a game. We can all agree that, right? That's the instrument you want that gets you going.
Yeah.
I want to do the hook from Local Hero, but I need. It's like when I do an accent, I need to do the first bit, and I can do a great Scottish accent, but I need to do a swear word first to get into it. And so
okay.
I need
Say
the
sorry,
first.
Tim.
Well, I'm not going to do it here. Plus, yeah, Tim makes a good point. We don't want to get a copyright strike for me doing an excellent saxophone impression
Soft.
of Local Hero. I know. But I want to be in the algorithm. I want to be in the algorithm, Brigitte Macron.
Oh, jeez.
Get in the algorithm. Anyway, on that note, that's Brian Dunseth over there from his hotel room in San Diego. I'm Tom Rennie in front of a Christmas tree. Tim Horsey produced the program, whereabouts unknown. It's the Week in the Tackle podcast. Subscribe everywhere. We'll see you next week.